Okay, so this paper right here is the one that we did with the sub and that I gave you so you can do corrections. I gave you back today. Okay, so the first one, it says show all your work, so please show all your work. If you didn't, I didn't give you credit. Also, it says write an equation in point-slope form for the line with the given slope and point. So point-slope form is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, where m is our slope, and the x1 and y1, they're from the point given. This is going to be my x1 and my y1. And the regular x and the x and y that don't have a number, those are just a regular x and y. So in the first problem, you copy the equation again, y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Then the slope is 4/3, so it goes in place of m, 4/3. Then x minus your x1, well, that's a negative 5. And then over here, y minus your y1. Okay, before we're rudely interrupted, if you left it like this in your assignment, I gave you credit, but please change it. If you have minus and negative, change that to a plus 5. Make sure you have the parentheses or else it's going to be wrong. Leave the 4/3 in the front and change that minus and negative to a plus 3. This is the answer in point-slope form, where I can see the slope and I can see the point that it goes through. So do that for 1 through 4. On number 5, you're going to do the same thing, 5 through 8. You're going to start the same way, but you're going to have to go an extra step because it says write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line given the slope and the point. So they give us a slope and they give us a point, so we're going to use the point-slope formula. We're going to start with the point-slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1, just like we did in 1 through 4. We're going to plug in x1, y1, and this is our slope. So y minus 3 equals negative 2 x minus 1. I don't have to worry about the negatives because both of our answers were values were positive. And then you're going to distribute the slope. The reason why we have to do this next step is because slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where you're going to actually have to solve for y. So if you see, this equation doesn't have parentheses, so I have to distribute so I can get rid of them. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And then I still have the minus 3 on the left side, so the opposite is to add a 3, so it cancels out. So add a 3 at the end over here. Y equals negative 2x, and 2 plus 3 is positive 5. There is my equation in slope-intercept form. I can see the slope, the m, and I can see the y-intercept, the b. And that's what you're going to do from 1 through 8. Okay? Alright, the second page, so it's getting harder and harder little by little. The second page, they also ask you for slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, but they only give you 2 points. They don't give you the slope, and they give you 2 points. So what you need to do is find the slope first. So we're going to use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So our second y is 1 minus our first y, minus 6. Second x is 2 minus our first x, negative 3. Careful with those negatives. So 1 minus 6 is negative 5. And then we have 2 minus a negative 3 is going to be 2 plus 3. So that's negative 5 over 2 plus 3 is 5. You simplify that, negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. So we found our slope. Now we're going to do the same thing we did on the front or on the first page, and we're going to do y minus y1, or use the point-slope formula, m x minus x1. just go ahead and stick with the first point, x1, y1. So y minus 6 equals the slope, m, that we found, negative 1, x minus a negative 3. Careful with those minus and negative. Before you start distributing, change that to a plus 3. And again, they want it in slope-intercept form, so I have to solve for y. So distribute the negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times times 3 is negative 3. And then you can just move this 6 over and change that to a plus 6, because we were subtracting a 6. The opposite is to add a 6. Obviously, it would cancel out on the left side, so I just skip that step. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0, leaves us with the y. And then y equals negative 1x, negative 3 plus 6, combine them. That'll give us a positive 3, and there is my answer. That is the equation. You can even graph it with your calculator to check yourself and see if it goes through these points. Alright, so that's what you're supposed to do on this page. Remember, please do your corrections so you can get extra points. I want everybody to get a good grade, to start off with a good grade on these 9 weeks. The next paper I handed back today was parallel and perpendicular. The first slide was parallel, where we know that the slopes have to be the same slope. If they're parallel, they have to have the exact same slope. So number 1 is easy. You see that there's nothing in front of the x, so my slope is 1. So then m equals 1. And they give me a point, so this must be my x1 and y1. So this handout is actually a continuation of the last one, where we're going to use the point slope form again. The equation, y minus y1 equals m x minus x1, and this is my x1 and y1, and this is going to be my slope, the same slope because they're parallel. So y minus 1 equals 1, that's my slope, and then x minus 5. Then we're going to distribute again, just like we did in the last handout. 1x minus 5 minus 1, and then the opposite of subtracting a 1 is adding a 1, so add a 1. Y equals 1x minus 4. You can graph this line and graph this line to check your answer and see that they would not intersect because they're parallel. They would look parallel. Careful on number 2, you're going to do the same thing, but you first have to solve for y. So minus 4x, what do you do to one side, do to the other, so it's negative 3y equals 12 minus 4x. You cannot combine like terms, so you leave it like that. Then y is still not by itself, so divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. Y equals 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4, and we can leave our slope like that. It's going to be positive because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, 4 over 3x. Well, I did all this work to find the slope. The slope is next to the x is 4/3. So since we're looking for parallel lines, the slope is going to be the same. So pick the same slope and now use the point slope formula again. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, where your slope is going to be 4/3, and this is going to be your x1 and y1. Substitute them into the equation, distribute your slope, and move the second y over, the y1 over, and you're going to add it. Oh no, well, just watch out for that, okay? So I don't want to do the whole work for you, I just wanted to start you off. So that's what you're going to do on the first side. Just keep going, find the slope, plug it into the point slope formula. This one's easy because they give you the slope. Okay, then number 4, you're going to have to solve for y, find the slope, then use the point slope formula and solve for y. Alright, back side. So perpendicular is going to be very similar, but the slopes of perpendicular lines are opposite in the sign, meaning one is positive and one is negative, and reciprocals of each other. Number 1 is kind of easy, so let's start with number 2. Well, actually, let's start with number 3, because in number 3 and number 2 you can actually see the slope. Well, let's do number 2. the slope is negative 4. So we know that they have to be opposite sign and reciprocals. Well, when it's a whole number, remember there's a 1 underneath, so the reciprocal of 4 over 1 is 1 over 4. And this is a negative 4, so the opposite sign is going to be a positive. I can put a positive sign or just leave it like that. This is my new slope. So when I use y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, when I use the point slope form, I'm going to substitute a 1/4. Some of you guys got this whole thing wrong because you were using the same slope. In perpendicular lines, they have to be opposite sign and reciprocals of each other. So make sure you change it from a positive to a negative if it's a negative to start with. But if it's a positive, then change it from a positive to a negative. If it's a negative, then negative to a positive. They have to be opposite signs, whatever they are. And then do the reciprocal, flip it over. Then substitute it in 1/4. And this is our x1, y1. So m is 1/4, x minus x1 minus a negative 2, then y minus y1, which is a 5. Then you're going to distribute the 1/4. So 1 times x is x, and 1/4 times so this was x plus 2. Just watch out for that. Times a positive 2 would be positive half. And then y minus 5, bring the 5, change it to a plus. 1/4 plus 5. So you can put 1/2. That looks kind of weird. You can change it to a mixed. You want to, so